For 700 years, my people have been enslaved without voice, without hope. Now I am their sword, and I do not forgive. I do not forget. So, let him lead me on to his shuttle. Let him think he owns me. Let him welcome me into his house so I might burn it down. But then his daughter takes my hand, and I feel all the lies fall heavy on my shoulders. They say a kingdom divided against itself cannot stand. They made no mention of the heart. What's up, YouTube? Michael R. Schulteis here, author of the Rossaville Saga, coming at you today with my review of Golden Sun, Book 2 of Red Rising by Pierce Brown. So if you are new here, we're going to do like usual. I'll give a summary, maybe some minor spoilers for Red Rising, which is Book 1 of the Red Rising series. I'll talk characterization, plot, world building. I'll give the book an overall rating, and then we'll discuss who is this book for and who is it maybe not for. All right, summary. So I'm going to preface this by saying, again, there may be some minor spoilers for Red Rising, Book 1 of the series. Now, that book ends with our protagonist, Darrow. I'm going to say Darrow. If you think it's Darrow, let me know in the comments. Swearing allegiance to Nero Augustus. This is, of course, the man who killed Darrow's wife. Now, Darrow is undercover. There's a whole deal where he had a bunch of advanced surgery. It's called carving, to turn him from a red to a gold. And the whole idea is he's going to be an inside person for the Sons of Ares and bring down the society ruled by the gold. So, at the beginning of this story, Darrow has a little problem. Okay, it's not so little. Nero wants to sell his contract, which will expose him to horrible danger. And, oh yeah, there's all the deal with Cassius and the Bologna family. So, at the same time, the rebel group, the Sons of Ares, they have a rather fateful plan in mind for Darrow. They want him to help take out the Sovereign, Octavia Aulun. I love these names, by the way. Darrow has a different idea, and things get extraordinary. This book is thrilling. You have political maneuvering, you have action, you have interpersonal drama. It's everything you'd want in a space opera or fantasy adventure kind of story. It's technically space opera, kind of a dystopian science fiction, but it feels very fantasy in the best possible way. I'll talk about that more in a little bit. So characterization, how does this stack up with Book 1? Well, this is just another win for me. I am so impressed with Pierce Brown's characterization. Darrow in particular as a protagonist he's very compelling. I love what Pierce Brown does with Darrow's internal conflict. He wants to help his people, and there's a strong sense of grievance there. I mean, his people have been very unjustly oppressed for a long time. He does want to help them, but he doesn't hate the Golds collectively. He sees a lot of them as, the people that they are. Nero is his problem. Some specific Golds are his problem. The structure is his problem. Not every individual, they're not all the same. And Pierce Brown gets this and creates this wonderful conflict within Darrow that I just absolutely loved. It's very relatable. It makes our protagonist, it gives him layers, it gives him depth. He's not just driven by a desire for vengeance. He wants to have a better future for himself and for his people and ultimately for everybody. And that is, I think, just marvelous and absolutely the thing that really sells this book for me all by itself in many ways, but there's a lot more to love here. We get secondary characters, for me, continue to really shine in this book. Mustang, or Virginia Augustus, that's Nero's daughter, and yes, Darrow's love interest. That's not a spoiler if you've read Book 1. I love what Pierce Brown does with Mustang in this book. Because she's not just Darrow's love interest, she's a character in her own right. She has her own agenda, her own set of plots and schemes and everything else. I think she was superb to begin with. I loved her characterization initially, but it only gets better and deeper, and there's more and more layers, and of course, Darrow feels for her, but then there's all the lies about his basic identity. I mean, because remember, he's undercover. So, he's attracted to her, but there's a lot of complex interpersonal stuff there that I don't want to get into too much. Trying to avoid spoilers here. I think Mustang is, in many ways, Darrow is our protagonist, so he's very much the star of the story. But Mustang for me is, I think, the second most compelling and most character I was most drawn to in this book. Although I should stop here and say that the other contender for that slot is Sevro, who was fantastic in book one, and I think only gets better here. Again, you're sensing a theme. Sevro is, like, I think every guy today would love a best friend like Sevro. He's so loyal, and he's just the right combination of weird and obsessive and really dangerous in all the right ways, which sounds kind of funny when I say it. And if you read this book, I think you'll get what I mean. And how cool is it? The Howlers with the wolf, the wolf hide wearing advanced elite fighters and assassins. Like, it's just, he's just the right combination of super cool and weird and obsessive, and just you it's what you want in a character. You cannot forget him. So there are other characters that I think I also shine. Ragnar Valaris is one who we meet in this book. He's an elite Obsidian who forms a bond with Darrow, and that was just wonderful beginning of a friendship. So we have the Jackal. The Jackal is Mustang's brother. Just refresher. He is therefore also the son of Nero, and Nero is a bad dude, but the Jackal is just so much worse, and he's the villain that you love to hate. And I think, again, the characterization that Pierce Brown pulls off with all of these characters is superb, and the ones I mentioned are standouts. And I'll say, too, with regard to Mustang, I keep wanting Darrow to have a happy life. I feel like he suffers so much in these books, and I don't know, you root for the guy. You really want good things for him, but these are books where a lot of awful things happen. Another aspect of characterization more generally that I'm going to mention here that is just such a win for me is the way that Pierce Brown keeps you glued to the page with the loyalties of characters and the allegiances sort of going back and forth. So a character will be an enemy and a friend and an enemy. Like the way that Darrow goes from more favorable to less favorable terms, or vice versa, with people is various people. It's not one. It's multiple characters, and I just love that because it there's a sense of stakes there. Like, oh my goodness, what's going to happen now? And it keeps you guessing, keeps you really just glued to the page. All right, that's characterization. How about plot? Well, if Red Rising had a plot that zipped along, Golden Sun to me is more like a runaway freight train, and I mean that in the best possible way. Now, this book, it has just the most incredible combination of thrilling events that will keep you blazing through the pages, and there's enough room for the story to breathe. So we're mostly either, if we aren't doing a thing, we're reacting to something that has happened, or we're figuring out what to do next, and there's some conflict and some drama around that. So it's not that it never slows down. It's that when it does slow down, it's enough to let it breathe, and then we go and do the next big thing. And there are so many fantastic developments in this plot. I like a plot with the right combination of drama, intrigue, and action, and that's what we get here. There are set-piece battle sequences that had my jaw on the floor and just kept me blazing through this book. There are developments, there are twists and turns and interpersonal drama and things that you might not see coming, and it's just, it is the kind of book that you just have to stay up late and just keep reading because it is that good, it is that engaging. I mean, this book really has everything. You like battles? Well, they're in there, and they're really epic. Do you like political machinations and, sort of a house kind of warfare, Dune, Game of Thrones? That's in there too. Maybe you like intense interpersonal drama and you want the protagonist to be happy. Well, guess what? We get everything. So this by itself is another compelling reason to read this book because I think Pierce Brown is just masterful at putting together a plot and executing it. I'll add too that this book, just like Red Rising, is written in it's a first person point of view in present tense. Now that's not everybody's cup of tea. I think it works very well here because when I read it, I feel the sense of immediacy. So I really enjoyed it. Your mileage may vary. World building. This was another strength. The caste system we encountered in Red Rising, I think, was an excellent feature of that world. And what we have here is we develop that. We build on that foundation. We get a sense of some of the dynamics with regard to different worlds in the system. I like how he imagines different planets. It tells me that Pierce Brown, that he understands geopolitics. He kind of gets the whole idea where you have kind of a rough, rugged land, and that makes rough, rugged people who, maybe they're the barbarian conquerors in one age, or they're the people who hold on to the older values in some other age, and you get that, and I love it because it feels very real. It feels like he's been reading up, maybe he's been listening to Dan Carlin, Hardcore History, or been reading historical, Roman history or whatever. The Greco, the whole thing where they all have these very Greek or Roman names. I just love the heck out of that. It just adds a sense of color that I think really makes this world come to life, or these worlds, I should say. The interplanetary thing specifically, it kind of made me think of The Expanse, which is a win. I love the series. The television. I haven't read the books. I watched the television series. So, if you like The Expanse, I'll mention in particular. I think that this is really going to resonate with you. I'll add too. I think the society literally it's called the Society. It's this empire. One thing I love is how he engages with the theme of decadence. You get a strong sense that they've tried to stave off decadence. Like the whole point of the Institute and all of that in book one. You get more of a sense with this book that, yeah, they really have been trying to break the cycle of history where the great empires kind of get soft and the elites become frivolous and kind of stupid, and then everything goes downhill, and the barbarians come in and take over. They're aware of that dynamic, and they are attempting to sort of stave it off by engineering toughness. But of course, people are people, and so it hasn't entirely worked. And I say they, but not all of the goals have been consistent with that. So that by itself is fascinating and tells me that Pierce Brown really is a very clever and very well-read person. And I love what he's done with this. So let's just sum this all up. Every aspect of this book for me was just an across-the-board win. I couldn't put it down. I kept flying through it. So what am I going to rate it? Well, obviously 5 out of 5. And I know that I've been doing... I know that I've done a number of 5 out of 5 in a row, but this is one of the easiest that I've done. All right, so who is this book for? Well, do you like space opera? Epic space opera. Do you like amazing characters, well-developed space opera societies with the emphasis of the emphasis in space opera really is the social and political structures, not the technology. So if you like that, and they have some fun technology, but it's not really about the finer points of how it works. The pulse fists I think are really cool. So if you like epic space opera, you like the social and political dynamics and the great characterization, well, this is for you. Yeah. Did you enjoy Dune? Sun Eater? The Expanse? Well, read Red Rising. You have to read Red Rising. And I'll say too, now, if you like epic fantasy and you say, oh, what's this whole space opera thing? Well, this is a great starting point. If you have read a lot of epic fantasy, you like epic fantasy, and you say, oh, I don't know, space opera sounds kind of sci-fi or whatever. This is very worth your while, and I think there is an excellent chance that you'll like this. Maybe you've read some Brandon Sanderson. Maybe you've read some George R.R. Martin. Maybe you've read, I don't know, some Michael R. Schulteis. I gotta work myself in there somehow. This is going to be a very good fit for you. I'm confident in saying that. I think overall these books are going to have absolutely enormous appeal for people who enjoy epic, well-characterized, action-oriented stories with tightly wound, well-constructed plots. Yeah, I think if you like that kind of fiction, whether space opera or fantasy or both, you need to give this a try. Go get it. It'll really rock your world. Now, that said, who is it not for? Well, this is a tougher thing in some ways because I see already there's obviously an enormous fan base, but I see this should really appeal to a lot of people who enjoy fantasy and a lot of people who enjoy space opera. Either or both genres. So I see enormous appeal here. If you want hard science fiction, this is obviously not that. That's not what we have here. The difference is essentially that hard science fiction is more about the science, the technology, making everything real plausible. This is more like, well, it exists, and the backdrop of the society is that you have spaceships, you have advanced energy weapons, and fun things of this nature. And we're not going to really worry about how it works or how plausible anything is. It's just it's there. So if you want hard science fiction, this is not that. I guess if you're looking for a kind of like a cozy read that doesn't have a lot of violence, I mean, there really isn't. The violence in this book is not terribly graphic to my eye. But there's some violence, and people do get banged up. There's combat. So if you don't want that, then give this one a pass. Besides that, again, this should just have very, very broad appeal. So if for whatever reason you've just held out, but you like epic fantasy and space opera, you're probably going to want to give this a try. So how about you? Have you read Red Rising or Golden Sun? Do you want to read these books? Do let me know in the comments. I would love to talk to you there. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. It does help us to grow the channel, and I personally really, really appreciate it. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to catch you on the next video.